Vergil can be a little bit more difficult than our previous authors. He's a little more loose with his word orders, but there are certain things that he likes to do that we can pick up on uh, fairly easily, I hope, once we notice his artistic style. So we're going to just look at the first two sentences in our DP passage. This is book 12, at the very end of the story when Aeneas is fighting very hard for land to found his city. He's fighting against the warrior Turnus, one of the native Latins, who was very upset at these newcomers coming in and trying to take over, trying to basically take over. So let's just go right into it. Before we translate, there are always a couple tasks that we need to do first. We need to understand the meter. Here it's dactylic hexameter, the same meter as the great poems of Homer. Then we also need to identify the different grammatical concepts within the passage. Here we'll just keep it simple. We'll just look at the nouns, the participles, pronouns, and verbs. And anything more deep than that, we can get into it on a case-by-case basis. Once we identify the basic structure of the sentence, we should be able to translate it without too much problem. Let's try. Here we go. Inter re extremo bellator in aequere turnus, palante sequitur paucos, iam senior atque iam minus tecesu, litis et quorum. Dactylic hexameter. Remember, dactylic hexameter, we are looking for spondees and dactyls. We're gonna use these two different feet in order to make an entire line. Inter a. I have an elision here. Extremo bellator in aequore turnus. Inter extremo bellator in aequore turnus. Palantes sequitur paucos iam senior atque. Palantes sequitur paucos iam senior atque. Iam minus atque minus su cesu litus a quorum. Iam minus atque minus su cesu litus e quorum. That's the meter, right? We have 6 feet. Duo, tres, quator, quinque, sex. We got 6, and they are all made up out of different spondees and dactyls. The second thing that we need to do is identify the nouns, verbs, pronouns, adjectives, things like that. We need to identify the basic structure of how this sentence is put together so that we can have a better shot at translating it. Word order in poetry can be all over the place. We've seen lots of different poetic styles that move things across from each other, that move things away from each other, that move things everywhere. So we need to identify what things are before we can see what's going on. So let's start off with verbs. There's only one verb in the sentence. Some sentences have more than one verb. We can do that, but this one only has one. And there it is right there. Sequitur comes from the deponent verb sequor, meaning follow. Second thing I'd like to do is identify participles. Participles are just verbal adjectives, so we're looking for something that looks kind of like a verb but has noun and adjective endings. And we have one, it's in your notes. Palantes. Palantes comes from the verb palor, palare, palatus sum, means to scatter, to wander. Here, it is used as a participle. The scattering ones, the ones running away. Next thing we need to do is identify the cases of these different things. So let's start off with nominative nouns. Nominative nouns. So I want to find the subjects. Typically, I find subjects at the beginning, but not here. I have an adverb here, very first thing, meanwhile. The word bellator is given to you. It means a warrior. We have a subject, the warrior. In aequore, tornus is also a subject. Pollantes might be. It could be nominative. So let's check the verb. If it was nominative, it'd have to be plural. Sequitur, that ain't no plural verb. So pollantes must be accusative. We'll get back to that. OS, I recognize. Senior, that IOR is a nominative ending. Atque US is something I recognize, minus and minus. And then last but not least, litus. There's a lot of nominatives in here. They all refer back to the same dude. They all refer back to the bellator tornus. I have lots of adjectives in here. Senior, minus, minus, and litus. Those are all adjectives describing tornus. The next most common thing are accusatives. So let's find some accusatives. Well, this one we already decided must be accusative. Paukos, that's an accusative ending. And that's it. There's only two accusatives. Lots of subjects, only two accusatives. So Turnus is doing something. He's sequitoring the pollantes paukos. The next most common thing are ablatives, telling us where something happens, giving us prepositional phrases. So I'll look for prepositions, and look, I find one. Aequore. Extremo could be dative, but here it goes with aequore. And last but not least, we have this ablative, last word left. And this is a word that we don't use very often. This is a form we don't see as often as the other ones. It's a genitive. We put all this together. We have to know the cases because the cases will tell us what the grammatical job of the words are. Meanwhile, in the extreme field, or the furthest part of the field, the warrior Turnus follows a scattering few. He's chasing them. Yam can mean like already or now. Senior is glossed for us as slower. It comes from the adjective segne means slow. Now slower, and now less and less happy by the success of his cavalry. Turnus is at the end of the battlefield, chasing his enemy away. But they're getting away. He's not as happy because his cavalry isn't doing as good of a job as he would hope. Let's do the second sentence. Second sentence. Atulit hunc illi caecis terroribus aura cum mixtum clamorum rectasque impulit aures confusae sonus orbis et in laetabile murmur. We got to scan it first. Let's go for it. Atulit hunc illi caecis terroribus aura. Atulit hunc illi caecis terroribus aura. Co mixtum clamor. I see a sneaky elision. Don't forget, this EM, that nasal sound, does elide. Clamora rectas. Oh, while we're at it, I see another one. Rectas quinpulit. Rectas impulit aures. Co mixtum clamora rectas quimpulit aures. That sounds pretty good with those elisions in there, to tell you the truth. Confusae sonus orbis et in laetabile murmur. Confusae sonus orbis et in laetabile murmur. Okay, that's how it would have been sung. Let's see what it means. Just like before, I'm going to start looking for verbs. And the first thing I see, atulit. That's an old friend of ours that I recognize from way back in Latin 2, I think is when we learned that. A long time ago, atulit comes from afero, afere, atuli, alatus, to bring toward something. Old friend of ours, atulit. Hunc illi caecis terroribus aura, commixtum clamorum, rectas impulit. Oh, impulit. That looks like it's got to be a verb. Confusae sonus orbis et in laetabile murmur. There we go. We got 2 verbs in this sentence. Next thing I'd like to do is look for participles, right? Something that comes from a verb, but it ain't a verb right now. Hunc illis caecis terroribus. Terroribus might be, but here is actually a noun. Commixtum comes from a verb that means to mix up or to mingle, something like that. That's it. We got 1 participle here describing it's a mixed up something or other. Having been mixed up, it's PPP. 2 verbs, something brought, something pushed, struck. Let's start with nominatives again. So what's the thing that atulited? Hunk. That ain't no, not hunk, not illy, not caecis. It is aura. Aura here means breeze, the breeze. Commixtum, clamorum, rectas, aures. Could be aures, but that would be another plural. Let's look at the verb. Impulit can't be aures. Confusae have the same problem. If it was nominative, it would have to have a plural verb, and we don't have any plural verbs. Sonus, there's one though. Et in laetabile murmur. Both of these actually. It's a neuter adjective describing a neuter noun. Murmur. Right. Murmur in English is very different from murmur in Latin. In your notes, it says a roar or a whooshing or it's a loud noise, which is funny because in English, a murmur is not a loud noise. Right. So those are our nominatives. Next thing we do is use for accusatives. Hunc. That's an accusative. Commixtum and clamorum. Rectas. Aures or ears. Confusae urbis. Nope. That's it. Next most common thing are ablatives. Illi. Oh, caecis terroribus. They could be datives. But when you have an option between a dative and an ablative, it's a pretty safe bet to go with an ablative. Confusae and urbis? Nope. Next. Let's do genitive next. This could be dative or genitive. Orbis, that's definitely a genitive. Actually, these 2 go together. And we have 1 left. Illy. That's a dative. I got a little bit of a problem here. I've got some things that go together that are kind of confusing. I already told you that this word and that word, we have an adjective and a noun that go together. Sonus and aura, those don't go together. These are 3 separate things, all doing 2 verbs. The aura is doing that verb. The sonus is doing that verb, and also the murmur is doing that verb. And then I have a lot of accusatives. Well, let's hunc and commixtum and clamorum. All 3 of those go together. They're all singular, they're all masculine, this mixed up noise. And rectas and aures, they'll go together because they're plural and feminine. So rectas and aures. And then obviously caecis terroribus go together. And confusae urbis go together. So it looks like a mess, to be completely honest with you. But remember, let's go back to what we know about what these cases do. The breeze carried or brought to him, think about Turnus, with blind terror, this jumbled or mixed up noise. What noise? What noise is coming from the breeze? Let's find out. Now this second clause is another one that's kind of backwards. I have accusatives before I get the subject, so I'm going to find out. The sound of a disordered city and a joyless roar struck his alert ears. Ooh. He's on the far end of the field chasing the enemy, but the breeze is carrying a sound to his ears. He hears his own city in a panic. Wow, there's a lot going on in these first two sentences. I'm pretty excited to see where this goes from here. This is how you should be approaching Vergil. You should start off by reading it and scanning it. That way, you have read it first. You've read the Latin before you engage your English brain. The second thing you should do is then identify the different elements inside of the sentence. Find the verbs, find the subjects, find the objects, find the locations, find out all these things. That way you have read it a second time without engaging your English brain. Then put it all together, translate it into English, being mindful of the task that you just completed, being mindful of who is the subject or what is the subject, what the subject is doing, where it's happening. Engage that English brain and use the notes that are given to you to your full potential. That's only the first two sentences. We got a lot of sentences left. Bye.